Hello again, I'm Stephen Jerome. I'm going to continue reading from my third novel, The London Year. This is part 85. Terry and the gang have just had a surprising Chinese dinner at home, takeout Chinese, and Finn has offered to share a pint with Terry at the pub. So here we are at the pub. After thanking Francesca again, we grabbed our coats and we walked the few blocks to our local, the same pub Tess and I frequented when she was still at the flat. Over our first pint, Finn was relaxed, almost like the early days before Sebastian came on the scene. Yes, he looked thin and worn, but I had no sense of drugs or a fidgety addiction lurking in the background. Commencing our second round, I summoned the courage to ask about his portrait of Francesca. Instead of the defensiveness I was bracing for, his eyes lit up. The old girl's got something, I'll say that for her. After tonight, I had to agree. Is she actually sitting for you, or... No, not anymore. She sat for the pencil sketches at the beginning. That was even before you came on board. So, yes, this had been dragging on for quite some time. We had 2 long sittings. I've changed the format several times. Now I'm going deep, not wide, layering paint, layers of color. With all we just heard tonight, I may add a few more layers. At first, I didn't know where it was going. Actually, it wasn't going anywhere. Then Sebastian gave me that commission, and you can say I got sidetracked. Kind of like the rest of us, he added pointedly, taking a long gulp of his beer. But I kept thinking about what Colin was saying about the manor house and those big portraits, how the eyes were alive, following him around. I laughed. She's living history. Exactly, Finn said. Not quite a relic, but that old blood's in her DNA, and that's all about layers. I saw where he was going. So how big will it be? I asked. Well, I won't pretend to compete with those wall-size portraits they used to do. But the one of Sebastian, that's going to be big. Finn stopped. He changed before my eyes. The momentary burst of excitement suddenly vanished. He finished his glass in 2 gulps, then without a word got up and went to the bar for another round. I hadn't finished my second, but he plopped 2 fresh pints on the old wooden table. When he sat down, he said, Yeah, that's one thing. Then he looked right at me. A lot of space to fill. I should never have taken him on. Well, is he paying you okay? This is Sebastian. Finn laughed out loud. Well, very well. Suddenly, money is the least of my problems. And I would have thought that was welcome news. But somehow it didn't sound like it. But there's nothing like a 3rd pint to loosen the screws. Money's definitely part of it for me, I said. Part of what? His tone was sharp. He was back on the attack. Well, Sebastian, of course. He's opening doors, and there's already money coming in from the magazines. Gracie's on top of all of that. She also said, You're not pacing at night like you used to. I immediately wished I hadn't gone that far. It was unnecessary. But Finn just chuckled. So you miss me? He said, smiling. I miss the old Finn, I replied. Well, what's wrong with this one? We're concerned, Finn, that's all I'm saying. We, meaning you and Gracie? And Tess, too. She says she saw you last week and... And what? She didn't like the look of me? She was concerned. Don't be, Finn said flatly. Is it the portrait? Is it Sebastian? He laughed scornfully. Sebastian's doing you just like I'm doing him. I didn't understand. Let me put it to you this way, mate. Art is like a rabbit hole. Maybe you're born to fall in, or you get to it by process of elimination because you're no fucking good at anything else. But once you get too deep, there's no turning back. And you can't hand back the money, I said, thinking that was somehow clever. Fuck the money, man, he replied with a gesture throwing the money back in my face. I can whore myself for money if it comes to that. You as well, he said, shoving his glass in my direction, splashing beer on the table. I'm working for my perks, Finn, just like you. You're stealing from them just like me, Terry. You're stealing from Harrods and Tess and Sebastian. You're a liar and a thief just like me. Then he held up his glass as a challenge. Half full or half empty? Half full, I replied. And at the end of this long night? Still half full, I said with false bravery, even if it's empty. Yet before the cock crows, you'll disavow me. It has to be full, I said, and emotion choked my voice, or we'll have nothing. Finn took a long breath. You're an optimistic fool, Terry, bless your bleeding heart. Better than the alternative, I said. He laughed ruefully. Then maybe you'll come out of all this unscathed. Out of what? The rabbit hole, matey. That big blank canvas we're all trying to fill with some poor excuse for a life. I make no apologies, I said. And that's the fatal flaw, Finn said, downing the last of his beer in one long gulp. I'm off. Where to? Same place as you, Terry, he said, smiling unkindly. To thieving and lying. Isn't that what we do best? He stood up and looked at me hard. Before the cock crows, Terry, mark my word. Then he patted my shoulder and headed for the door. I held on to my glass, sipping slowly. I didn't like the half-empty turn things had taken. It was too glib, reducing everything to whoring survival. He'd taken a different tack entirely when we talked about Francesca. He was honest, optimistic, even magnanimous toward his subject in a way that actually surprised me. There seemed to be light at the end of that rabbit hole. Less so, apparently, facing that huge canvas for the restaurant. Maybe he was too far down the rabbit hole to turn around, or maybe just lost. I remembered him talking about the wonder, the distracting wonder of creative options. Was he still struggling with these choices? Finn had greatness in him. We all felt it. But if money was finally not a problem, what else was going on? I finished my beer, bringing things up to a nice 3-pint buzz. The night was still young, so I decided I'd see how quickly I could make it to the Coleherne, maybe catch one more pint before closing. Then a taxi came by, and I hailed it without thinking. 10 minutes later, I was pressing through the crowd as last call was shouted over the din. 15 minutes later, and nicely topped off, I joined the after-hours crew ambling jovially around the corner to Catacombs. Lost myself on the dance floor for a song or two. Suddenly, I was grabbed by the shoulders, opening my eyes to a beautiful, tipsy grin. It was my old buddy Jamie, the ever-game Scotsman. We danced together for a while. Then he suggested we go round to his place for a quick rocks-off. I loved how he was so refreshingly direct and playful about his urges, and so ready to include me. Besides, he had a big and was happy as an exhibitionist to offer me another close-up look. No fucking necessary, just some minor details here. The best kind of no-strings sex between mates. I walked home at peace with the world when, from somewhere, I heard a rooster crow. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Thanks for following along.